والسماء ذات البروج واليوم الموعود وشاهد ومشهود قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء شهيد إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ذلك الفوز الكبير إن بطش ربك لشديد إنه هو يبدع ويعيد وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد فعال لما يريد هل أتاك حديث الجنود فرعون وثمود بل الذين كفروا في تكذيب والله من ورائهم محيط بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على
We have only one Zahid.
No.
Is that a yes?
Yeah. A little bit of excitement.
اللهم صل على Where's everybody? All the reciter went out.
Asal ba eh? Ali. Sampai pulang
اللهم كن وليك المجتهد الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة في كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه وعد كتابه وتمتعه فيها من رحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Back us up.
میں پڑھوں ایسا میں get the chair please Sada anniversary
So, inshallah, we have 10 minutes and we can start.
صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. باقی سب کو بلا لوں گا.
بر حبیب خدا ختم انبیاء آواز بلند سے اجازت ہے.
اللہم
صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
بسم اللہ بسم اللہ.
ایک اور سلوات کا سہارا دیجیے. پس لباس عزا صورت پس لباس عزا غمزدہ رہے سورج پس لباس عزا غمزدہ رہے زہرا کا ذکر ہو تو اندھیرا گھنا رہے. زہرا کا ذکر ہو تو اندھیرا گھنا رہے. اتنی بلندیوں پہ ہے زہرا کی ذات پاک. اتنی بلندیوں پہ ہے زہرا کی ذات پاک. وہ جس کے بعد صرف خدا ہی خدا رہے. پھر اس کے بعد صرف خدا ہی خدا رہے.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
جگر کے درد کو اکبر دوائے جاتے ہیں. جگر کے درد کو دوائے جاتے ہیں نظر سے باپ کی شاید چھپائے جاتے ہیں خدا حسین کو پہنچا دے لاشت بر پر خدا حسین کو پہنچا دے لاشت بر پر یہ داغ وہ ہے قدم لڑکھڑائے جاتے ہیں یہ داغ وہ ہے قدم لڑکھڑائے جاتے ہیں جگر کے درد کو اکبر دوائے جاتے ہیں نہ جنبش نظر میں نہ دم ہے اکبر میں نہ جنبش نظر میں نہ دم ہے اکبر میں مگر حسین گلے سے لگائے جاتے جگر کے درد کو اکبر دوائے جاتے ہیں جدھر سے لاش اکبر گئے ہیں لے کے حسین ارے جدھر سے لاش اکبر گئے ہیں لے کے حسین نشان بیٹھنے اٹھنے کے پائے جاتے ہیں نشان بیٹھنے اٹھنے کے پائے جاتے ہیں جگر کے درد کو اکبر دوائے جاتے ہیں
صدق اللہ اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وجل
کھڑے ہوئیے آپ یہ چلیے بھائی ان کو بھی بلائیے ساتھ.
میں نے زحمت دے دی کہ طبیعت کی وجہ سے میں نے اس لیے زحمت دے دی. اللہ تعالیٰ پروردگار
وہی مولا شفا دیں گے.
صحت عطا کرے. موقع تو پلیز آئیے آپ پڑھیں.
وہی مولا شفا دیں گے.
سلام. تو میں نے اس لیے میں نے سوچا کہ نعرہ صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وجل فرجهم.
اور حبیب خدا ختم انبیاء آواز بلند صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
نعرہ حیدری.
یا علی یا علی یا علی مدد ہم ہے.
نعرہ صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وجل.
سلام کی نشان.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وجل.
عزا کا مجھے سلا دے دو ابھی سے عشق عزا کا مجھے سلا دے دو ابھی سے عشق عزا کا مجھے سلا دے دو. جنا ملے نہ ملے مجھ کو کربلا دے دو ابھی سے عشق عزا کا مجھے سلا دے. جہاں مریض کے کوئی دوا نہ کام آئے, جہاں مریض کے کوئی دوا نہ کام آئے, وہیں پر چمے آباز کی ہوا عزا کا مجھے سلا دے دو. مجھے نہ چاہیے جنت نہ چاہیے کوثر, مجھے نہ چاہیے جنت نہ چاہیے کوثر. زمانے والوں مجھے خاک شفا دے دو. زمانے والوں مجھے خاک شفا دے دو ابھی سے عشق عزا کا مجھے سلا دے دو. ارے مجھے بھی لینا ہے خون حسین کا بدلہ, مجھے بھی لینا ہے خون حسین کا بدلہ. ارے ذرا سی دیر کو اصغر کا حوصلہ دے دو عزا کا مجھے سلا دے دو. زمانہ واقف آداب انقلاب نہیں. تو جو کام محب I want you guys to stay here please. کام کر رہے ہیں. زمانہ واقف آداب انقلاب نہیں، ہر ایک ہاتھ میں تاریخ کربلا دے دو، ابھی سے اشک عزا کا مجھے سلا دے دو۔ ارے میں اپنے اشکوں سے، میں اپنے اشکوں کو گوہر بنا کے دیکھوں گا، میں اپنے اشکوں کو گوہر بنا کے دیکھوں گا، ذرا سی دیر کو رومال سیدہ دے دو، سے اشک عزا کا مجھے سلا دے دو۔ پارا حشر میں انجم وہ دیکھ کر رضوان، ارے حسین والا ہے جنت کا راستہ دے دو، ابھی سے اشک عزا کا مجھے سلا دے دو۔
اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد۔
چند چیلم جو کربلا میں بہتر کا ہو چکا، اور فاتحہ حسین کے لشکر کا ہو چکا، اور پیوند بے کسوں کے سرو تن کا ہو چکا، مدفون لاشا سکتے پیغمبر کا ہو چکا، مدفون لاشا سکتے پیغمبر کا ہو چکا، ماتم میں تین روز رہے شور و شین سے، روئے لپٹ کے مزار حسین سے، روئے لپٹ کے مزار حسین سے، میں جانتی تھی شہر بسا ہوگا بھائی گا، ہوگا وہ جو مترفہ ساری خدا، ارے چیلم کروں گی دھوم سے میں کربلا کا، پرساں بھی نہیں کوئی میرے زہرا کی جان، ارے پرساں بھی نہیں کوئی زہرا کی جان، ارے منہ ڈھانپنے کو آپ ہی پلہ بھی لیتی ہوں، اور اپنے دل کو آپ ہی پرسا بھی دیتی ہوں، اور اپنے دل کو آپ ہی پرسا بھی دیتی، ارے چیلم تو کر چکی ہوں میں دل افگار یا حسین، اب روزہ کے طرح سے ہو تیار یا بیٹا بھی اور بہن بھی ہے نادار یا حسین، آخر کبھی تو آئیں گے ظفر یا حسین، آخر کبھی تو آئیں گے बार या तकिया है काज साए परवरदिगार पर इस दम तो साए भी नहीं है मजार पर चेरुम जो करबला में
I would like to request brother Syed, please come in this microphone.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali
Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Yeah, no, I just don't want to.
First of all, I would like to offer my condolences to the Shayo global community for the loss of Ayatollah Hasanzadeh Amri, passed away yesterday. Please recite the Surah Fatiha for him and for all men who are not with us anymore. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil azim. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa habibi qulubina wa tabibi nafusina wa shafi'i dhunubina bil qasim Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
We will continue our discussion from yesterday. We answered the question, why Azadari yesterday? And I believe my respected younger people here remember the key lesson from yesterday. So I want to make sure that I give you the respect that you deserve, being the future of the Shayo. No one here is more important than you. So let's start the discussion. There are so many topics today, but let's start the discussion first by repeating the message from yesterday. The why, the mission, the purpose of Azadari is to protect Islam so that we can facilitate Zuhur. That's the key concept. Remember that. Remember that. Always note it down, jot it down somewhere so that we understand. Today we will connect. But why is it important to protect Islam? That's the why question of Islam. Why is it even important? So before I go there, one of the key messages I want to give you, because yesterday I informed you that what a great accomplishment you have made to make this center in this part of the United States. One more thing that I found out, which is extremely worthy to mention, which is that our community here, mashallah, is model community in this area, what I have found out, which is very important. You're excellent with your neighbors, you serve this community, you don't distinguish between whether you're serving people from the Shayo or you're serving people from Christian community or other communities. This is what Imam expects from you. So this is another type of accomplishment. It's not just about making this center, but also reaching out to your neighbors, reaching out to your local communities, and making sure that we serve them just as we serve our own community. So that's important accomplishment also. So let's move on to today's topic. In fact, I'll take one little detour here just to talk about ayatollahs. Yesterday we had a discussion about our ayatollahs, that how great they are and what kind of scholarly work they do. So Ayatollah Amli, who passed away yesterday, was an expert in Islam, obviously, in Ayatollah, but in mysticism, which is a branch of Islam, which is a branch of study, knowledge, but also in mathematics, which I was surprised, and astronomy, and not just mathematics, which is simple arithmetic. In fact, very advanced math, and even he did some work on relativity. So understanding of relativity, I found out today, and on astronomy. He passed away yesterday, so again, I insist, younger people, make yourself familiar with the works that our Ayatollahs have done. I will name some names, so you will have this video. You can think about that when you want to go and study. Bakhtar Sadr Shahid, the amazing work in so many areas, in economics, in philosophy. Murtaza Mutahiri, excellent work. So if you get a chance to read his books, also some other shuhada, these ayatollahs who became shaheed by various forces, Sheikh Nimr, Musa Sadr, Muhammad Hishti. So the reason I'm naming them, I'm just communicating to you that these people have done excellent work in so many areas, and they have books that in scholarly work that's worth reading. Sheikh Zakzaki, or younger people, anyone familiar with Sheikh Zakzaki? You are? Amazing. What do you know about him?
Well, I mainly just know about him.
About him?
Not too much.
That's something very well. So Sheikh Zakzaki is a scholar who converted from being a Sunni to a Shia in Nigeria, and then with him, more than 1 million people converted to Shiism, and he was arrested. His 6 of his sons were killed. 3 first Shaheed, first 3, and then 3 more, and he did their namaz-e-janazah. So you can just imagine the level of sacrifice that your scholars have been making for us, and he recently got released from prison. So that's just a little bit of detour. I wanted to make sure that younger people keep this with them. I'm going to need a little bit of a service from younger people, as I did yesterday, to do some searches. So you have, I assume you have Quran downloaded on your phones. If not, just Google, and then what you would do is, as working with me in this session, when I give you a chapter and an ayah, just read that. And yesterday I saw this microphone works really well, so your voice can be heard. But I want you to participate with me as we solve this issue of why Islam. So it really boils down to 2 questions. Number 1, why should I be a Muslim? Because we have so many choices. We have a choice not to have any religion. Allah has given us choices. That's why He has made us sahib-e-ikhtiyar. We have free will, making decisions. Why should we choose Islam? Important question. Number 2, why does Islam offer a superior value for humankind? Because the reason religions last and sustain is, like everything else, because they add value for people. If they're not adding value for people, why would people continue to believe and perform within the framework of a religion? So these 2 questions, keep them in mind. What are different models? We have atheism, no belief in God. It's becoming very, very prevalent in America. And so you will be encountering questions and issues about atheism. Then you have the polytheism, which is belief in multiple gods, more than one. and there are people who have that belief system. Then you have monotheism, which is the Abrahamic religions, Christianity and Judaism and Islam. Then within Islam, you have various firqas, so various sects, and one of them is the Sharia, of which you are believers of. So now, here is the structure. The question we're answering is, why the Sharia Islam over, number one, any other sect that exists within Islam? Why the Sharia referred to other monotheistic religions? Why the Sharia referred to any polytheism? And why the Sharia referred to atheism? That's the structure of the question that we need to systematically answer as a community, as the Muslim community. Let's do some foundational concepts. Let's establish 3 or 4 foundational concepts for this discussion. If we can read Salawat. When did the Sharia begin? A question. Some people answer that it began at Hadith. Some people answer that it began at Karbala. But very simply, when did the Sharia begin? It's a simple answer. Well, who do we call our first prophet? Hadith is a good answer, but do we not believe in Prophet Adam? We believe in Prophet Adam. Is he not part of the Sharia Islam? Of course he's part of the Sharia Islam. Do we not consider Imam Hussein as inheritor of, in Ziyarat Waratha, that what you read, inheritor of Prophet Adam? Yes. So based on the belief, religious belief, human civilization starts at that time when Prophet Adam and Lady Eve, and there's one other entity that's sent to earth with them. Who is that? Who is sent with them? There was a third entity. Pushed out? Shaitan. Very good. MashaAllah. Great answer. Shaitan. So now you have Prophet Adam and you have Eve, Lady Eve, and you have Shaitan. All right, that's the beginning at that point of our religious ideology. Our religious structure begins with the beginning of human civilization. I will come back to this concept. This is the first foundational concept you have to keep in your mind. Everything else will connect to it. Second foundational concept. Hazrat Adam and other prophets, we consider them as pure souls. Right? We consider them as pure souls. So now, when Shaitan is here and Adam is here, Hazrat Adam is here, then is the battle between an entity and an entity, or is it between an ideology and an ideology? The battle is between an ideology, and an ideology starts very early as Islam begins. So the first one that I will be asking you to read is chapter 35, verse 6. In volunteers. MashaAllah. So Prophet Adam represents certain ideology, Shaitan represents certain ideology.
Oh, what chapter?
35, and then ayat 6.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد وعجل فرجهم.
So,
Just read the translation. That's okay.
One more salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Indeed, Satan is your enemy to you, so take him as an enemy. He only invites his party to be among the companions of the blaze.
Thank you. And the next one that I'll be asking you to read is chapter 5 and 27, so you can prepare for it. The ayat said, surely shaitan is an enemy of you, so consider shaitan as your enemy. See, we forget that. We forget that shaitan is our enemy, but then we don't consider shaitan as enemy. We think that we are protected from shaitan, but if that awareness, that firewall of awareness goes down, then we don't consider shaitan as our enemy. That is the beginning of our religion. Arrogance of shaitan on one side, masumiyat of a prophet on the other side. There you go, the human civilization begins, and your job begins then. Next question happens right away. A discrimination between good and evil comes from Prophet Adam's sons, which is, you please go ahead and recite, 527, chapter 5.
Narrate to them all truth the story of the two sons of Adam, when they made an offering and it was accepted from one of them and was not accepted from the other. The latter said, I will surely kill you. Thereupon the former said, Allah accepts offerings from only the God-fear.
Thank you, mashallah. So the sons of Adam fighting over sacrifice that they were giving, each was asked to give something, and one of them, enraged, angry, and kills the other. The ideology of aggression now started with arrogance of shaitan. Now we have ideology of this anger that you have, that aggravation that a brother is feeling towards another brother. Where are we going with all that? So the humankind has been created imperfect. But Allah has guided us, except the Muslims, Allah has guided us to go and achieve perfection. Achieve perfection. Our lives are unlike anything else in this world that Allah has created, which has perfection already, the entire universe. We are not just in a state of being, but in a state of becoming. Constantly, our lives, we have to strive towards becoming. So this is the key concept that Allah has started defining through these stories, the concept of transgression or oppression for us. That's the meaning of this concept. And I will just 2 words today that younger people, I ask you to request you, you're not there with those words, we're almost there, that I want you to remember from today's session. So if anyone can read chapter 2, 256. This is from Ayatul Kursi. So if you know the full Ayatul Kursi, you have read this ayat multiple times, but today we'll just discuss the translation of chapter 2 and 256.
So 256.
Yes.
Then we brought you back to life after your death, so that perhaps you would be grateful.
It's chapter 2, ayat 256. Chapter 2, 256. Sorry, 256. So this is from Ayatul Kursi. You read that like the Hafideen, and then go ahead.
Let there be no compulsion in religion, for the truth stands out clearly from falsehood. So whomever renounces false gods and believes in Allah has certainly grasped the firmest, unfailing handhold, and Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing.
Excellent. Thank you. And you will be reading the next one also right after that. But the word taghut is now used in that. That's one word that I want younger people, all of you, to remember. One word from this discussion, taghut. Oppression is being defined. Oppression is being defined from Prophet Adam, from the next prophet, from the next prophet, from the next prophet. The concept of oppression, the word taghut. Taghut means someone who transgresses, someone who exceeds the limits that are defined by Allah. Why? Because as soon as you exceed the limit, what's defined by Allah, you are now in the territory of Ghair Allah, right? Now you're in the territory of Ghair Allah because you are intentionally rejecting the territory that has been defined for you. So anytime You move ahead of that, you move outside of that, that's transgression, that's being defined. Can you read 257, please? Chapter 2, 257.
Okay. So Allah is the guardian of the believers. He brings them out of the darkness and into light. As for the disbelievers, their guardians are false gods who lead them out of light and into darkness. It is they who will be residents of the fire. They will be there forever.
Thank you. So this is where the ayat uses two words, gives you the distinction between wali and taghut. So there are two sides to it, two sides in this. Now Allah is defining, this is the distinction between, on one side, you have a system of wilayat, all the way coming from the top. On the other side, you have a system of shaitan, of taghut, the system of oppression. The key words today that really should set in as you understand the mission of Islam is the key words to al-wali. If we understand wilayat, we understand Islam. If we don't understand wilayat, we can spend our lives, entire lives, we will not understand Islam. Core to Islam is the concept of wilayat. And we also cannot understand wilayat without understanding taghut. Taghut is the contrast with wilayat. So, and oftentimes we use casually, we say words like, Ali and Waliullah. We say words like, we use these words that Prophet said that if who's ever Mawla I am, Ali is their Mawla. So the concept that we're trying to get to, as the sister said, we're trying to get to Ghalib, but we are trying to understand first, Allah is clarifying for you what Taghut is before we can get to Ghalib. The clarification, thousands of years of history is coming for humankind so that oppression can be defined. Let's move forward. The era of prophets starts with which prophet? We just talked about him. Prophet Adam. And the era of prophets ends with which prophet?
Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
MashaAllah. Prophet
Muhammad.
There are struggles of prophets that we have been told about. From starts, the era of prophets starts from Prophet Adam, ends at Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Pay attention. Very important concept coming up here. So the challenges that prophets faced were not natural calamities. Prophet Noah's opposing force was not the flood, right? It was not the flood. The opposing force were the people, right? Prophet Moses, it's not the sea that the struggle is against. Sea can be split by Moses. It's Pharaoh, where the struggle is. It's with people. It's with ideology versus ideology. It's not natural calamities. Second thing, go from all the way. Prophet Abraham, opposing force, a king. Not every Joe, a king. Prophet Abraham. Prophet Nuh, opposing force. People of those towns, leaders of those towns, that's the opposing force. Moses, Pharaoh, Prophet Lut, the people who had engaged in bad lifestyles. Prophet Yusuf, the oppression in the form of lust, the opposing force. Jesus, Prophet Jesus, against money lenders of that time, right? Economic oppression, he's fighting. And Romans, political oppression. And then Prophet Muhammad against Makkans, which is known as the age of Jahiliyyah or the age of ignorance. So now Allah is defining for us, describing for us, there's a Taghut on one side, and there's a Wali on the other side, a Taghut on one side, Wali on the other side. And Taghut is not some average Joe. It's not some some shepherd. It's not someone who did, an average person who does daily living. It's kings, it's queens, it's people of power. That's what Taghut is. People who could influence every struggle that you have been given told. People of power. These prophets were not engaging average people, because Allah is telling us that where things matter is with the people of power. That's where the struggle is. That's where the oppressor sits. That's where the oppressor functions from. So the entire age of prophets, the entire era of prophets is defining and describing and communicating to us what oppressor looks like, so we can understand. This is what oppressor is. Oppressor, what does oppressor do? Different kinds of things. Economic oppression, political oppression, and all of those stories in Quran. And it's always against weak people. It's always against weaker populations. It's always against people who cannot defend themselves. Always. And all the means used by oppressors are all Allah is giving us from the era of prophets, all the stories that add up. So, how do they're trying to obviously control populations, use political control over people, use economic control over people, and use social control over people. And as for the Sharia, our entire ideology is based on protecting the weak, right? Why we will sustain, why we are here in business today, and why we will be in business today, because we add unparalleled value to humanity by standing up for people who are being oppressed, by people who are being weak, regardless of where they are, regardless of which population they are. The reason the Sharia, the mission of Islam, of the Sharia, is to stand up, qiyam, against oppressors. Exactly how the Prophet 1 to Prophet 2 to Prophet 3 to the last Prophet did. Exactly the same way. So sometimes we're not communicated. It's the important part is that I define the Taghut for you. It's very important to understand the other side. Wilayah. When you use the word wali, what does that mean? We use that all the time, and we feel so good about that Imam Ali was wali. Next coming up, chapter 5, 55. Remember that ayah 5, and then 55 is the ayah, chapter 5. Ayah 55, it's known as ayah Wilayah, right? We all know this ayah, and this is something we love. We, as Shias, we love that ayah because it gives us this profound distinction and explains wilayah for us. So, and just the way to remember that for your memory is just remember Panjatan Pak, the 5, chapter 5, 55 ayat, right? Go ahead. You want to read it?
Okay. This is how we make our signs clear, so the way of the wicked may become distinct.
Is it chapter 5, 55?
Yeah.
Wilayah.
You want me to read it? I think I'm pretty sure I have it.
Go ahead.
Your real friends are no less than Allah,
Mm-hmm.
is that it? His messenger, and the fellowship of his believers. Those who establish regular prayers and regular charity, and they bow down humbly in worship.
So Allah is saying that, explaining wilayah to us. Allah is wali. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is wali. And who gives charity in Rasul. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he is our wali. That is wilayat being explained. Wilayat is being explained. Allah is wali, Muhammad is wali, Ali is wali, Imams are wali. But what does that even mean? What does the wilayat part what does the word mean? And a lot of times Shias, we tend to confuse wilayat with imamat, and we equate them as imamat means wilayat. Well, and sometimes the confusion resides even in this translation, as he did. The word is implied as friend, but wilayat in Tashayyo has a very distinct meaning, and that meaning is authority, control, political, social, economic control. See, Islam is not just a dimension of life. Human life is a dimension of Islam. Islam is not a dimension of human life. When I was younger, I developed a model for myself, and I was foolish. Now I'm older, hopefully less foolish, but I developed a model for myself. I thought it was a great model. I put down and said, what are different dimensions of life that I have to build? And I said, okay, I have to build health, I have to build family, fun activities that a person has to do, your career that you have to manage, faith that you have to manage, community that you have to manage. And after many years, I recognized that what a foolish model that was. All you need is your faith. Everything else, Islam is not a dimensional system where this is a dimension of life, and this is another dimension of life, and this is another dimension of life, and this is your religion. No, this is your religion, and all dimensions of life go inside that large box that you have defined. Yes, we think inside the box. We're proud of that because we stay safe as long as we think inside the box, meaning inside the boundaries defined by Allah. Because that's how we serve humanity, that's how we protect humanity, that's how we safeguard the interests of humanity. That's our ultimate purpose of why we live. Wilayah is a system of transfer of authority. The ultimate authority resides with Allah, the ayat is saying. Ultimate authority. Then that authority gets transferred by Allah. So by Allah, Allah gives that authority to Prophet. Allah gives that authority to Imam Ali. Allah gives that authority. That is wilayah. The system of wilayah goes all the way, and every people, we're not orphans. We have our Imam, as I mentioned to you yesterday, we're not orphans. We are not people without an Imam. We have our Imam, we have our Wali. So the system of wilayah is who has the authority. And then during the times of labor, authority gets transferred to ulama, are very, very trusted and learned ulama and maraja. The system of authority. Also, wilayat, the concept is in tashayyu, goes below that. If he's responsible, and he's responsible for running this center, they are wali to other people in some way because they have certain decisions, authority, responsibility. People are wali to each other in terms of responsibility, authority that people have with each other. Same way, the ultimate authority resides with Allah. Allah makes decisions for us. Allah defines the boundaries, how we function, and then the authority resides with Prophet who have told us how, who brought the message, and then authority resides with Imams because the era of prophets ended. Now the authority needed to get transferred. To after Prophet's death. And who did he transfer the authority to? To Imams, to Imam Ali. That's what Ghadir was. The announcement is not Ali is my friend. Oh, whoever I am friends of, be friendly to Ali. There are people who translate, who understand that when Imam Ali is saying that, that Ali is whoever I am Mawla of, Ali is their Mawla. Really? Okay, so that's friends? No. Why did he have to bring everyone together? Why did he have to bring everyone together and announce that, you're friendly to me, please be friendly to him? No, the word does not mean friends. It also doesn't mean love. as a lot of people have translated and I'm getting down to the pure Tashayyo definition, it also does not mean love. Oh, if you love me, then love Ali. So what happened, unfortunately, in Islamic communities in general, a large part of Islamic community thinks of Ghadir as all Allah said was that if all Prophet Muhammad said was in Ghadir that if you're friends to me, then be friend to Ali. That's it. That's also a large part of Islamic community translated it that way. But even within Shias, unfortunately, a large part of Shias translated that if you love me, then love Ali. Well, again, that's not something the Prophet showed that with his presence. Prophet showed his love towards Ali throughout his life, and Ali showed his love towards Prophet throughout his life. No one would have thought that they don't love each other, or they don't have respect and love, the immense level of love for each other. That's not the point. Prophet was telling that who has the authority of political, economic, social decision-making after me, that's Ali. That's Ghadir. It's
Nare Haydari!
Ya Ali!
Nare Salwar!
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
So recognize that is extremely important, very important lesson to understand from Ghadir. That it's about transfer of authority. Prophet is saying that after I pass away, after me, the political, economic, social control goes to this, to Ali. That's wilayat. Wilayat is about that political, social, economic control. Why? Why? Because of the era of prophets showed us that what happens when oppressors rule, right? The entire era of prophets, which we just described about, the entire era of prophets was about distinction between oppressors and the oppressed and the wali. That's it. That's the entire purpose of the era of prophets. It showed us that. So it would have been irresponsible for Prophet Nauzubillah not to pass the authority to one who was Masoom and who was Wali, and Quran was testifying for his wilayah, right? Quran was testifying for his wilayah. So it would have been irresponsible not to pass authority to a Masoom who was going to lead. The era of Imamate was about to begin, and that message was necessary. One thing, a lot of times, so this is one confusion resolved. Whenever you think about the purpose of Islam, so I'll just summarize the discussion up until this point. Whenever you think about Islam, think of it as a system that protects rights of the oppressed, that stands up for the oppressed. That's it. That's the purpose of Islam. It doesn't matter which country you're in, you will always have oppressed people. We see hatred amongst communities for no reason. We see hatred amongst ethnicities for no reason. We see oppression, that's epistemic oppression or knowledge-oriented oppression, in which the way people manipulate each other, the way people, oppression on social media, all of those are different types of oppressions. And it's the Tashayyo that's standing against oppression because we have been trained that way. We had an era of prophets to train us that way, and then we had the era of Imams that trains us that way. And we have an Imam today who guides us. So the authority, the political, economic, social authority resides with Imam and those who represent him. So So one important message that's related to this, and then we'll end the discussion. These are very special days, and I wanted to, so everyone is clear on what Walayat is. Walayat is the system of authority, as authority transcends as it's distributed in the society. Who has the ultimate authority? And Taghut is anyone who denies that authority. Anyone who denies that authority. I will read something tomorrow for you in our last majlis, but today it's sufficient to say one thing about the arrival of the era of Imams. We always think about that Sayyida Fatima went to the Medina Mosque to claim over. This is how things are communicated to us. Things are communicated to us this way: to argue over, to claim over a parcel of land, right? That's what the concept is, that she was hurt, she goes there, and she talks about that. That's not what her khutbah says. That's not what her khutbah is. I can tell you, based on my research, that khutbah is the announcement. It's the announcement that the era of Imams is starting and what will be needed in that era. We will talk about this tomorrow. I will read certain parts of that khutbah to you. And it's amazing. She is making that announcement. So, and then she also becomes the first martyr, the first shaheed to protect Imamat. The first shaheed, think about that. It happened right after that event. We don't think of things that way. We don't understand that it's important to see that from a strategic. She is the one who's announcing to the world. We treat that as if someone going to a court and arguing a case or a piece of land. This is not how they work. This is not how that works. Her sermon over there, her khutbah over there, is a declaration and information on what will it require to function in this world, under the imamate. And then she talks about her father, she talks about Allah, she talks about her father, she talks about the system of Islam, she talks about Faru'e-Din, defining the whys. Remember, this majlis was about whys? She talks about the whys of why namaz exists, why salat exists, why hajj exists, why khums exists. All of those whys are defined in that khutbah. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So now I will end the majlis with reading to you a khutbah from Imam Hussein that will provide to you the evidence. This is evidence that you will get about the discussion that we had today was in the right direction. That khutbah itself indicates something very profound. We said today that the reason Islam exists, the purpose of Islam is because it protects humanity. That's the reason. It protects because it teaches us to stand up for the truth. It teaches us to stand up, qiyam, for the oppressed against the powerful oppressors. So Mina khutbah of Imam Hussein starts, "Oh God, you know that what we did is not out of competition for the power." This is what Imam Hussein is saying. You know that what we did is not out of competition for the power, nor for the search of the worthless wealth of this world. Rather, it was done to demonstrate to men the shining principles of the values of your religion, to reform the affairs of your land, to protect and secure the indisputable rights of your oppressed servants, and to act in accordance with the duties, traditions, and ordinances you have decreed. See, Imam Hussein is defining the purpose of what the stand that he took in Karbala, why it was taken. And if you people, then he's talking to us, if you people do not help us in this cause, the tyrants will have more power over you and will try to extinguish the light of your prophet. God suffices us, and in him we trust, and to him we will return, and the return is to him. That's Imam Hussein. He captured the essence of Islam in one paragraph. It is Arbaeen to fight for the rights of the oppressed against the oppressors, and to know the difference, who is an oppressor and who is the oppressed, and also to know the qualities, the traits, the ideologies of both of them. And again, also know the difference between wali, knowing clearly who your wali is so that you're not misguided. The ayat is saying, even I used the word, the one that, mashallah, this young gentleman here read, is that people, even he used the word wali for, Tawud also, that if you are, they are your wali if you go in that direction. So make sure that you know your wali, you know who your wali is. And always, that's why tawassul is important, always reaching out to your Imam Zaman. Pray to him, ask him to give you that light and understanding. And the reason we stand today, and the reason I feel confident in the future of the Sharia nation is because we stand for the truth and we stand for the oppressed. As long as there is oppression in this world, there's a need for a system like the Sharia Islam in this world. And that's what you can see around today. The only people who stand for the oppressed against the oppressors are the Sharia. This is the stand that was taken by Imam Hussein. Just talk about that. And one of the Sahabi of Imam Hussein, his name is Syed, 97 years old. And he can barely see, can barely walk, and he can barely write. And he comes to Imam Hussein, and he says to Imam Hussein that, give me permission. And Imam Hussein says that, but you can barely see, you can barely stand straight. How would you even write? How will you even fight? And Syed said that I have this piece of cloth in here, 3 pieces of cloth. I will tie one on my forehead so my eyes will stay open. I will tie one around my waist so that my back will stay straight. I will tie one when I ride a horse. I'll ask someone to tie my feet to the horse so that I don't fall down. Imam Hussein said to Syed, okay, I am about to pray. So this is afternoon time now, and I am about to pray. Can you stay here and guard me? Can you stay here and guard me? This is 97-year-old person. Imam starts praying, he's standing over there. And the Saad says, go, start firing arrows at them. And the shoot arrow comes in and hits Syed in his chest, 1 arrow. Blood starts coming out. Syed, 97-year-old, standing, praying, Allah, give me strength to stand at least for that long that Imam can finish his prayer. 2nd arrow comes in. 6 arrows come and hit his chest, and he stands there. And 1 arrow hits his neck. He stands there, finding strength in him to stand. And then Imam Hussein finishes his namaz. He looks back, he stands up, and then he knows what is happening. Very gently, he brings his body to the ground. And so he says, Imam, have I fulfilled my responsibility? And Imam said, yes, you have fulfilled your responsibility to me, to my mother, to my father. So, and then Imam returns. Imam Hussein returns to the camp. And there are 2 visits that are worthy of discussion today, given the tabut that we are taking out today. The first is his discussion with Imam Sajjad. So he goes in his tent. Imam Sajjad is lying on the floor, and obviously, as you know, that he's sick. And Imam starts now. Imam understands. The conversation starts. Conversation begins. The communication of an Imam with the next Imam. The instructions are now coming. And Imam Zain al-Abidin lifts himself up and he says to Imam Hussein, Father, Baba, where is Abbas? Where's Uncle Abbas? And Imam Hussein says, he's no longer with us. And then Imam Sajjad says, where is Ali Akbar? And Imam says, put it this way, Sajjad, my son, that among men, you and I are the only ones left, and I will not last that long. So this is, think about that at that point, Imam Sajjad, and then Imam gives two instructions to Sajjad, to Imam Sajjad. He says, and those instructions, he gives many instructions, but two that are relevant to us, the Shias. Sajjad, son, tell my Shias that when they drink water, think about our thirst. Think about our thirst when they drink water. Second one, for Shias, I wish that all of you were here in Karbala. Imam is not saying that if I wish you were all here in Karbala and fighting for me, which obviously we should be doing and thinking and building our lives that way. Imam is saying, I wish you were in Karbala and see how I asked for water for my son and how that request was denied. How kindness was not shown to us, even for a child to give water to a child. So Shias, remember what oppression does. Tashayyuh, remember what oppression does. Why you need to stand up against oppression of that time and of today. Then Imam goes and says, and then goes to Hazrat Zainab, and conversation begins now, brother and sister, and without even, as I mentioned to you yesterday, without even thinking about words, if you can just imagine the exchange that is happening, just by them, the communication that is going on, just by looking at each other, Imam starts walking away. Hazrat Zainab says, wait, Hussein, wait. Imam Hussein turns around and says, okay, let me kiss your neck. Let me kiss your neck. And Imam says to Hazrat Zainab, can I see your wrist? Let me kiss your wrist, because that's where the future is. That's where the ropes will be put on. So Imam now leaves. And you know, Shias of Imam Hussein, you know what happens. And you also know that whenever we recite this brings tears to our eyes. It brings tears to our eyes and builds that commitment in our hearts to fight the oppression, to fight the oppressors. That is who we are. So Imam Hussein goes, Imam Hussein fights. Imam Hussein is alone. Like I said yesterday, do not leave your Imam alone. Imam Hussein fights. Now, Imam Hussein, you know how the last moments of your Imam and Sayyida Zainab standing and watching what's happening to her brother. But if that would have been the end, but you know that oppressors, the mentality of oppressors, they don't give water to children. They don't feed the Prophet's family. This is Prophet's family. Think about that. This is Prophet's family, the way they were treating Prophet's family, the ladies of Prophet. And then what happens? that with Imam Hussein, that's not sufficient for them that they have killed Hussein, they have killed everyone over there. That's not sufficient for them. They pile up all the bodies in a line, and then they say, okay, bring horses. A horse will run from this side over to that side, and a horse will run from that side to that side. Or you can crush the bodies. You're taking out Tabut today. There was no Tabut for Imam that day. There was no Tabut for Imam that day. The bodies were crushed. It doesn't lie.